There are things known, and there are things unknown. And in between are the doors of perception. And the doorways of perception are now open. All around us there exist worlds of the seen and the unseen. In a universe of endless possibilities, we should never limit ourselves to a single perspective. For in order to hunt the shadows and become true explorers of the unknown and the unexplained, we must sometimes take a paranormal point of view. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your humble host, your ghost host with the most, Dennis Carroll, and this is episode 89 of Paranormal Point of View. Tonight, we're going to be talking the big V, vampires. Okay, vampires I have known. Welcome aboard, buckle up, buckle down, get ready, because this is going to be a dark, strange ride, folks. You're always talking about some very dark and wild stuff when you get in on the subject of vampires. Absolutely. I want to welcome all of my good friends here tonight as we gather in the grotto for another ride on the strange train. Absolutely. I want to welcome the girl in her gong, mother of Gus. Shin Valley gal, good to have you here, dear. Hope you're doing well. You're a real warrior woman, okay? Absolutely. And Wizard Moon and Midwest Night Watcher, my brother, and my brother from another mother, okay? And let's see who else we got here. Mr. Kyle Smith is in the house. Hello, nephew. Awesome to have you here. And of course, the lovely, ever lovely Shiro is in the house with us. Hello, dear. Good to have you here. And I want to welcome everybody slowly gathering in here. I'm hoping we'll have a big crowd tonight. We got a lot of ground to cover. Now, as most of you know, I have been advertising this, but very soon, the day is coming, okay, when I will definitely, hold on just a second, when I will definitely be putting this out there, okay? And this is hopefully one of the prototypes for the cover of my coming book, Paracryptidology, to hunt monsters and things of nightmare, okay? And there will be one whole chapter of this book on vampires, okay? Because it is a fascinating and very, very interesting subject, absolutely. But be looking and be watching for that. And if you got any stories you think it might be good in that book, you still got time to do it. If you want to send me one of your experiences or whatever that you know about, you can certainly do that. And it might end up in the book there, you know, okay? And so you might want to think about that. Hello, Aussie Sue. Sweet white lady, how are you doing tonight? And good to have you here from down under. And let's see, let's get this show on the road. Of all of the evil spirits, and there are many evil spirits that roam and wander this world. And I believe me, folks, I met a few of them, okay? Of all the ones that wander this world, one of the most darkest is the vampire. The living dead, the undead, the Vovalaka, the Vodalak, the Nosferatu, the vampire. It is one of the most evil beings that walks this planet, trust me. And there are living and undead vampires, you know. When I got into this subject many years ago, and I have always been involved with vampires and werewolves my entire life, okay? I've known about them. I watched movies about them when I was a creature features kid. When I was a shock theater kid, I used to love to watch the movies about them, so they've always been in my life. But imagine my delight when I grew up to find out that, hey, these things are real. It's not made up. It's a real deal here, folks, okay? And that's what we're talking about tonight, some of the real stuff. And I'm going to give you a 6-pack of vampires tonight. A 6-pack of vampires is what you needed, right? Just something, a little something cozy you can cozy up to at the end of the week here. Absolutely. I've got a 6-pack of vampires for you tonight. And that's why I titled the show Vampires I Have Known. And I'm saving the best for last. I've got one vampire incident that none of you have ever heard because I have never told this to anyone. Number 6 is going to be something you want to stick around for, okay? Absolutely. Hello, M13. Good to have you here. Ida, welcome aboard. Bigfoot Dwarf, my other brother from out on the coast. All right. Good to have you here, bud. And, yeah, I've got a 6-pack of vampires for you. No, not Bud Light. Vampires. They got more of a bite than Bud Light, okay? Absolutely. But I don't know. After too many Bud Lights, the vampires might start looking good to you. You know what I mean? And anyway, absolutely, we got to consider the vampire. It is a fascinating thing. And also, I've got a quick movie review for you before we jump into the main subject. And this is a movie I've been kind of wanting to see, and I was hoping I wouldn't be disappointed, but I was somewhat disappointed. I actually watched the new Nosferatu, and I didn't like it that much. It was okay as horror movies go, and it had its moments. Okay, when it wasn't an excuse for Lily Rose Depp to get naked, it was kind of good, but it will not hold up to the original. That is a classical piece of art, my friends. The original Nosferatu. But it was okay, but I just, it took a lot of liberties, I think, that it shouldn't have. I think it should have stuck more true to the original Nosferatu, would have made it better, but that's just my opinion. But it was okay. I watched it twice just to make sure, I didn't miss anything. I watched one, and then I watched the extended cut. And it didn't happen any. Okay. It was not, it was okay, but they kind of blamed us more on it. I don't know. It was, here's the whole feeling I got out of Nosferatu. It was done in a hurry, almost like it was done very quickly. They could have explained a few things more. They could have developed the characters a little bit more. I don't know. It just, what do you guys think? If any of you saw it, what do you think about it? That's just my rundown on it. But anyway, I was rather disappointed with it. And by the way, Lily Rose Depp does look like her dad a whole lot. She looks like a female version of Johnny Depp. Okay. Well, anyway. I think she's only like 25 years old or something like that. But my gosh, she sure is busting on the scene in an interesting way. She got naked in this, folks. Absolutely. Hello, Monica. Good to have you here. I haven't seen the new Nosferatu, but I heard it was dark and I like it. It is very gothic, but I don't know. It just seemed like it was done in a hurry. It seemed disjointed to me to certain ways. I don't know. It's okay, but I mean, they could have done a whole lot better with it. That's just my opinion. I think they would have done a whole lot better if they stuck a little bit closer to the feel of the original. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That's the way it goes. But it is available to watch if you have Prime Time, Amazon Prime. You can watch it. It is available on there. But anyway, that's my rundown on the movies this week. Okay, haven't had a lot of chance to watch movies this week. I'm watching Nosferatu. I want to see. Okay, yeah, it's on the. It's on there on Prime TV. But like I say, you might be there. Watch the extended cut, though. Okay, you get a choice. I think it was on Prime TV. Wait a minute, I'll take that back. It might have been. I don't know if it was Prime or I think it was Prime. Though. It could have been Prime or I was switching back before between Prime and Paramount, It might have been Prime though, but anyway, make sure you watch the extended cut. Don't waste it time on the first one. Okay, the extended cut's a little better, but there you go. But anyway, that's it. Okay, let's get into the main stuff tonight. Vampires I have known. All right. All right. So now the vampire, which I just called as many different names, is known throughout most all the cultures of the world for a reason, I think, because it does exist. Absolutely. And I'm going to be telling you 6 stories tonight. Some of them I'm sure you've already heard, but we'll retell them again for some new people that have come in and have not heard these stories. Uh, I will rehash them for you. Hello, Sandy. Yeah, from upstate South Carolina. That's where I'm at. Good to have you here. And absolutely. Anyway, this 6-pack of vampires I got for you tonight is very interesting. These are my own personal experiences with these. Although over the years I've heard some other things from some people, and one of these is not actually when I was not on the spot, but I saw some pictures of. I don't have the pictures anymore, unfortunately. A a drive died on me, and I lost all the pictures. I had several pictures on this, but I will tell you about that later. But we'll get into that. That's the last one I'm saving for you. Okay, and it's one that I have not told anyone ever told anyone about, but I'm going to probably put it in the book as well. Anyway, I wanted to share it with you guys. Absolutely. And hello, Damien. Good to have you here. So let's get started. Vampires I have known. Now, let me talk about vampires just a little bit. Being a fascinating subject, there are many. You can look and say that's a vampire, but wait a minute. Whoa, hold on. Put the brakes on. There's more than one kind of vampire. Okay, and we've talked about this before. And we need to understand this is a whole big category of things here. When you say the word vampire, it doesn't mean just one single kind of entity. There are different vampires, just as there are different werewolves. And we will definitely get into that again one night. Because werewolves are my favorite, by the way. Vampires suck, folks, okay? I had to say that. But yes, they do. And they to me appear to be parasites, okay? They live off of us. The werewolf kind of stands on his own, although it will unalive you very quickly. And it's not a real nice guy. Absolutely not. It's not. It doesn't have a good disposition. It ain't out in the field pulling up daisies and having a good time. No, 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 no. But vampires are a different category altogether. They living off of us like leeches or mosquitoes or ticks or things like that. They are parasites in that way. The real true vampire is. But let's talk about the different kinds of vampires right quick. We'll do a quick rundown on them, okay? There are demonic vampires. There are vampire spirits. There are reanimated dead vampires, which are involved, a lot of that's involved in necromancy. There are human vampires who actually belong to vampire cults. They like to drink blood as well. And then there are what I call the wannabe vampires. They're sort of kids into the gothic thing. They're into the goth and they like the vampire lifestyle, but they're not that really serious about it. Maybe they'll taste blood once in a while as a dare or something like that, but they're not that big into it. Okay, those are sort of the wannabe vampires. But let's get back to the first category, the real vampires, the demonic type vampires. And when you talk about vampire, there is a distinct, very big demonic connection to the vampire. Okay, they are demonic spirits. And one of the stories I'm going to tell you tonight involves a demonic spirit. Okay. But then you have the revenant vampires, the returning vampires. These are the returning dead. Are they really people that's come back, or what are they? Or they are just simply reanimated, demonically reanimated corpses. That's something we're going to look at here, okay? Now, the true vampire, that legend talks about is supposed to be a returning dead person, a very evil person who was evil in life, and he comes back in death to live off the blood of the living. Okay? Now, there are many different types of vampires who live off of other things than blood. They can live off the life force or the soul, whatever name you want to give it. They can live off of the energy, psychic and otherwise, the energy of human beings. So you have different types of vampires that feed, okay, in these three categories. Then you have even some go after the lower forms of life, like dogs, cats, birds, etc. They feed off of these animals and they don't feed off of human beings that much. Okay. This is the lower caste of vampires. They are almost like animals in many aspects. And you're going to hear about one very much like that shortly. But anyway, uh, let's talk about the demonic vampires for just a moment. I have to extenuate. There's a difference in the demonic vampire and the returning dead vampire. Okay, the returning dead vampire. If I were to come back as a returning dead vampire, it would be Dennis as a vampire. Okay, I supposedly have Dennis's memories. I supposedly have Dennis's habits and all the stuff. I know things, and I'm related to people and stuff like that that I know. Thank you there, Russell. I appreciate that sticker, sir. Thank you very much, bud. And I would know things. Okay, that is the traditional type vampire. But what's going on here? Can the dead really come back like that? Can they really be? There are some extenuating circumstances that says yes, they can do that if they are very malevolent people. And I'll tell you why. Hold on just a minute and think about this. If you are a very, very evil person, you are demon possessed or demon influenced, there's a difference, okay? You can die either way. Your spirit does not rest. You're not an inmate for heaven. You're not a candidate for heaven, definitely. And maybe even hell doesn't want you. You understand what I'm saying here? You are sort of caught in between. You can return to harass the living, especially people that you know. That's the Vortalak, by the way. The Vortalak comes back to prey on his own family. Probably because he knows them. It's his blood that he's after, his own blood that he's after. And he also knows their habits and everything. They make easy targets for the Vortalak. And he will turn his whole family into a family of vampires, okay? Or Vortalaks. Okay, there you go. That's a different thing. But that is also a returning revenant, okay? This person was evil, okay? And evil, remember that old saying, evil never dies. That's very true, my friends. Evil never truly dies in this world, unfortunately. It doesn't. It seems to continue on in one form or another because that's the very aspect of what evil is. Evil is hard to kill, it's hard to stamp out because of its very evil, uncooperative nature. Okay? If you die as a very good person, you're going to a very good place and you definitely want to go there. You don't want to hang around here anymore causing trouble or anything. But if you were mean and malevolent, and you don't even want death to stop you. You understand where I'm getting at on this? So that is possibility of one type of vampire that comes back. And the traditional way to get rid of these vampires, we'll talk about that in a little while, is a little bit different than you think. Okay, Hollywood has told you a lot of things that may not necessarily be what it takes to handle this situation. Okay, we'll talk about that in a little while. Now, getting back to the demonically reanimated corpse. A corpse reanimated by a demonic spirit is like a zombie in some ways, okay? It is very much like that. It is just a shell being used by an evil spirit. And you can use this shell to harass people. It doesn't usually take blood as much as the other vampire we talked about just now. This one's not after blood that much. It's after more like revenge or murder or trying to get even with somebody else. It can be sent on different missions because somebody is pulling the strings of the demonic to get this done. So this is connected to dark supernatural magic, folks. Okay, that's the way that ball bounces on that. Girl and even though I'm a nerd, is a good thing. It's always good to be a nerd. You learn more that way, my dear. Anyway, in the back of the class, okay, Bigfoot Wars, hang on, buddy. Come on, get your seat up front here now. All right, we burn out some goths in high school. Yeah, we had some of those definitely. So anyway, some of those goths, unfortunately, are sadly lost souls, my friends. So we'll get into that. That's a subject for another time. But anyway, you have the demonic animated reanimated corpse that is used for, so like I said, dark supernatural magical purposes. Then you have a full blown demonic vampire. Okay, and it can come back and have. Now let me tell you something about this vampire. Okay, it is more spiritual than it is physical. Therefore, it does not cast a shadow. I don't know if you know this or not, but all demon entities do not cast a shadow. They don't cast shadows, okay? That's just the way they are. A true demon in its true form does not cast a shadow, okay? Don't forget that. It's very important. But now, this kind of demonic vampire can appear in two ways. It can be ethereal, it can be just a spirit that possesses people or attaches to people, or it can come back as something that looks like the vampire you see in movies with the fangs and all that, and it will come after your blood because demons love blood, by the way, folks. They get high on it. The young, especially in fear driven blood, they are addicted to it big time, okay? They love that because the blood. What does the Bible say? What did Dr. Van Helsing always say? The blood is the life. Don't ever forget that. Without your blood, my friend, you ain't gonna be here. Okay? The blood is the life. Okay? When the time comes and you don't need blood to live on anymore or to live with, you're not gonna be on this plane of existence anymore. Okay? All right. Anyway, these are the different types of vampires, and I have run into several. Okay. Yes, I have done some vampire hunting in my time. It is not a pleasant or fun pastime. Trust me. You don't really want to go there. You don't ever want to have to do that. But if it's a necessary, it's a necessary. Okay. And I'm not going to get into the details on that tonight. I'm definitely not going to sit here and incriminate myself on some things. But that's something for another time. But when there has to be a job done, it has to be done. And you can lay vampires, you can lay ghosts, you can lay werewolves, you can lay demons. And by laying, I mean put them down. Okay, you put them down in different ways. There are different ways to put these things down. You got to remember that, and you need to know how to do it if you're going to go after this. You don't want the situation to end up like this one right here. Hold on a minute, let me put my banner up. You don't want it to end up in this situation like this right here. If I can find a picture I'm looking for. Take a look at that. The poor girl's unalive by a werewolf, and look what her book was. You see what the book says? Vampire hunting. She has a stake in her hand. Don't look for the wrong monster, okay? If you're going to go look for something, make sure you're on the right track. Don't end up like this poor lady. She got unalived by that thing, okay? And because she was looking for vampires, and surprise, surprise, she found a werewolf. So don't encounter that problem, okay? Be careful about that. Because you know what? You know your monster. That's why I'm putting out a book called Paracryptology. Hunting monsters and things of nightmare, okay? And you know, there's a certain way you go about this kind of stuff. And you got to be very careful how you do it. So anyway, getting back to the subject at hand, vampires. So these are many different vampires. So you got to understand how to control these, how to put them down the way they need to be done, because they are different entities, although they are still under the umbrella of the vampire. They are different entities altogether. And of course, I'm not going to get into the vampire cults, which are directly attached to the satanic cults or devil worshiper cults They're all about the same thing. They're just slightly arriving on a different road, okay, to the same destination. All right, you got to remember that. But the vampire cults are very dangerous. They are like that M16 gang or whatever they call it, that M13 gang. Yeah, M13 or whatever it is. That Triaga gang that you hear them talking about so much. Those guys are dangerous. I know the Crips and the Bloods used to be dangerous. They are nothing compared to what these vampire cults can and could do if they want to. And believe me, they are deep into trafficking. They are deep into drugs. They're deep into prostitution. The list goes on and on. They are not only cults, they are gangsters. Okay, they are gangs of criminals also that helps their enterprise, but they are also vampire cults. They worship the vampire lifestyle. They may be demonically possessed by these vampire spirits. They're very much like that cult that the traffickers south of the border worship. With I think it's the Marita, Saint Marita, the paragon of death. They believe that these powers that they are given, these supernatural powers that the demonic gives them, makes them bulletproof, and the list goes on and on and on. Yeah, EMS 13. I couldn't think of it. EMS 13. That's the name of the gang. And so these guys are nothing compared to what the vampire cults are. And some of these things may be connected to the vampire cults because vampire cults are deep into a lot of stuff. And they are directly connected to the Church of Satan, the satanic cults, and the list goes on and on. Okay. All these things, my friends, you got to remember the big picture on this. They're all connected because they fall under the auspices of demonic influence in this world. You understand where I'm coming from? So you got to remember that when you deal with a vampire, you cannot throw away the demon card. It is the card that must be played in the vampire game here. It is the number one card. Okay, it's the dead man's hand. You got to play it because you can't talk about the real, true vampires without thinking about the demonic side of them, and that's what they are. Basically, they are evil spirits, and they come in many different forms. Okay, you got to remember that. It's very important. Yeah, the Santa Marita. More people know this for good reasons. Yeah, it has become a cult of death, really, basically what it is. But they believe that that thing gives them powers to see things, to gives them good luck, makes them bulletproof, can even make them invisible. Sometimes they need to be. The list goes on and on. This is dark stuff, folks, that you're getting into. This is a whole nother kind of a dark world that these people are truly living in, and it is a demonic world. We must understand that is where what all of this is plugged into. Just like you plug your toaster in the wall, to make you some toast. These guys are plugged into the demonic big time. That's where their true power and influence comes from, and the dark money that they get, and all these other things. And let me tell you something. Have you noticed something in the world today? Okay, I need to do a whole show on this alone. Have you noticed the increase of crime in your neighborhood? Have you noticed that? I'm talking about not just in your neighborhood too, but in the entire country, the entire world. What's going on? Crime is rising at an unprecedented rate. Although some of these fake polls may say it's different, I don't believe so. I believe from what I see, what I hear, and I'm a news hound. I'm always on top. I used to take journalism, folks. Okay, I'm a news hound. I watch the news. I know what's going on in the news all the time. Everybody knows me, knows that. I know what's going on. I keep on top of the news. And believe me, without a doubt, crime is rising to unprecedented levels. Why? Why is that? I'll tell you why. The influence of evil is rising. Do you not understand? The demonic influence is getting stronger and stronger, deeper and deeper into everything. And that is exactly why you're seeing these things happen. And that is exactly why you need to know the origin and the root of these things in order to safeguard your own survival. Did you hear what I just told you? Your own survival. You better recognize what's going on around you. It's like that last show I did about how to see the unseen. If you've missed that, you need to go back and check that show out. It was a great show, by the way. I must say so myself. You see what's going on around you. You better act accordingly. You better ramp up your game. You better be on top of your game if you want to survive and live to an old age in this world, okay? Trust me. And especially, listen to what I'm saying, especially if you want to secure your soul. That's the most important thing, okay? So don't forget that. But I'm getting back to the subject now. I'm going to tell the first vampire story right quick. A lot of you already know this, but this happened to me years ago in a churchyard in Charleston, South Carolina. I was there on a little mission of my own. I was looking for one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. It was supposed to be buried in that churchyard. This was downtown, okay. And I was looking around that day, and that day it was a fall day. It was late in the day. It was not dark. It was not twilight, but it was, I think, remembering back, it was kind of a cloudy day. It was an overcast day, okay. And I was looking around the tombstones. I love graveyards. They are fascinating. They're like reading a history book, in many ways. That's why I like to hang out in graveyards. The grave don't bother me none. It's the living that give me problems, okay. But anyway, I was hanging out there looking around, and I hear a voice behind me. And this girl says, "You like graveyards?" So I turn around, and there's this young girl there, okay. And she's probably got sort of light brown hair, kind of. And she's got on, the first thing I noticed, like I said, I've been trained by the best to observe everything, okay. First thing I noticed about her right offhand was her clothing. It was sort of a mixture of old and new. I think she had like on a vest like kind of thing. I don't know what the ladies call that. It's a kind of vest like thing. And she had on kind of a long skirt, but it kind of looked old fashioned a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And that was the first thing I noticed. Okay. And she put her hand out and shook my hand. She says, "How you doing?" She said, "My name is, I forget now what her name was, Sarah or something, something like that." And I took her hand and shook it. Now, the first thing that happened to me when I shook her hand, and I have touched dead people before, okay, many times. I've touched corpses, and this is what like shaking hands with a corpse. That's what it struck me. I almost dropped my hand, and but I didn't. But it was, I got to thinking in my mind. I remember thinking in my mind, there must be something wrong with this girl. She's got very cold skin. She must have some kind of glandular problem or something. I didn't know what to think. I thought maybe it's just the way she was. But it was very strange, very odd. And I said, "Yeah, I like, I like cemeteries. I like looking around cemeteries." And she said, "Yeah." She said, "Oh yes, I practically live here." I said, "Oh really?" And I'm beginning to pick up some odd vibes off of this girl. You know what I'm saying? I'm beginning to pick up some strange vibes here. And I said, "Oh really?" I said, "Are you that interested in tombstones and stuff like that?" She said, "Yeah, but to tell you the truth, I'm a vampire. I'm buried here." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. She said, I'm going to go back. I was buried here. That's what she says. I was buried here. I said, "Well, that's very interesting." And I thought, well, this girl's probably into the goth stuff. So that's why I asked her. I said, "You mean you live in one of these, you belong to one of these vampire, societies or something? Because they're in every major city. And she said, "No, no, no. I'm a real vampire." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, how old are you?" Something like, she said, "I'm like, 200 and some odd years old." And and so I said, "Oh, wow, really?" I said, "That's interesting. And I'm beginning to think, boy, is this girl going around the bend here? There's something really flaky definitely going on here. And she said, "Yes." She said, I said, "Well, if you're a vampire, what are you doing out in the daytime?" And she said, "Oh, we can come out in the daytime. Especially on an overcast day like today when the sun's not shining bright." She said, but we like nighttime better. And of course, I found out through research years later that vampires supposedly can move around in daytime if they need to, but they don't like direct sunlight, and it hurts them, it bothers them. But their powers are more at their peak at night, more so than daytime. They're much more powerful at night because they are creatures of the night. So I'm beginning to say, well, I think I might order, to myself, I might order distance myself from this young lady here. This is getting weird. And she had strangest eyes. I remember thinking she had very strange eyes. And I looked her, I look at people in the eyes. And I looked her in the eyes a couple of times and kind of looked away. It gave me a real funky kind of feeling. And, the eyes truly are the windows of the soul. I found out through research years later also, you do not look these guys, none of them, in the eyes. That includes any kind of demonic entity or anything. Never make eye contact with them. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea to shake hands with them either. I broke both precepts on that day. I didn't know better, really, at that time, but now, of course, I do. But at that time, I broke those precepts, unaware of what I was doing. Don't look them in the eyes, and definitely don't shake hands with them, okay? And if some of you remember what I put on the video the other night about shaking hands, you will know what I'm talking about on that, okay? Anyway, the whole thing in a nutshell is I began to think, well, I need to kind of distance myself from this girl, So I'm kind of walking around a little. I'm still walking, and we both were walking, okay? And I think her name was I'm gonna say Sarah Ann, something like that. She had a two kind of name. I think it was Emily, Sarah Emily, or something like that. It was a very old fashioned sounding name. And so we're walking through there, and I just kind of glanced down just a moment, not looking around, not just a moment, a flash. I look back up, the girl is gone. She's nowhere around. She's gone. And I thought, well, how did that happen? Is she hiding behind a tombstone here or what? So I started walking around looking for her. And the cemetery is not that big, okay? And there weren't any trees for her to get behind or anything like that, that close by where we were at. I got that worried me. This upset me more than anything else. I'm saying, where did this girl go? I'm thinking, did she fall in a hole or what? And I'm looking around, and I can't find her. She's nowhere. She is nowhere. She is completely gone. There are other people walking around too, And I started to go around and ask them, "Did you see that girl?" But they were like in a further part of the cemetery. They probably not, might not have seen her. So I'm looking around. All of a sudden, I catch something out of the corner of my eye. I look up, and in amongst the trees over on the side there, flying through the trees, is the biggest bat. One of the biggest bats I've ever seen. I'm gonna say it was probably the size of a hawk, probably, along those lines. Now, I want you to remember that because it's going to relate to something I'm going to tell you about a little bit further on in the show here, okay? But that's my experience with the girl in the cemetery. So I went back the next day and got to looking around some more. I was hoping I might run into her again. But next day, the sun was a little bit brighter, okay? So that's probably why she didn't show up. But anyway, I think I found a tombstone with her name on it. And it was 200 some odd years ago or something like that. And that was the freaky part of it. It made me think, hey, maybe that wasn't really somebody messed up in the head. Maybe that was the real deal, And so there you go. That was my meeting with the girl in the graveyard. And that kind of, I did more research. It got me deeper into looking at these things to try to figure out what it was I may have experienced. And I've had people ask me, and I've told this story on a lot of different podcasts and stuff. I've had people ask me over the years, what do you think it was? I said, I don't know. I really don't know if she was the real deal or not, but buddy, she'll do till the real one comes along. Absolutely. Because she was very freaky, very freaky. And if I was to say that she was real, I think the jury is more decided toward her being the real deal than not. I don't know, but it was really freaky. And I have shook hands, Monica, by the way, with people who are anemic, and they do have cold hands, and I know they do have cold feet and cold necks too. But this was different. This was of cold and clammy, like it was almost like shaking hands with a corpse. Basically, that's what he was. I don't think she was goth because she didn't look goth. You know, she didn't have her eyes painted up like the goth, you know, the black lipstick on and all that. She didn't look goth. You know what I'm saying? But she looked like out of place because she had on kind of new looking clothes and also very old fashioned kind of clothes. And that's what struck me as very strange. Almost as if she would have, you know, stepped out of a coffin like that. You know what I mean? It was very strange. I got a feeling that's what she was, but I can't prove it for 100%. All right, we'll go on to the next story now. Okay. The twice struck vampire. This was a very strange case. Okay. Now I'll tell you the quick story on it. I had word come to me. Of course, people know, they know my reputation now. They come and tell me all the really strange, weird stuff. Okay. That's good. I like that. Okay. But anyway, I had word come to me that there was a grave I needed to see. And this was in a supposed cemetery. Oh, it's probably about 40 something. Well, no, I'm going to say maybe about 30 miles from here, something like that, at the most. About 30 miles away, something like that. And I know where this cemetery is. And they said, here's the story behind it. They said that this man had died. He was a black man in his, I think, 40s. And he had passed away, but they say he was a very malevolent and evil man. He was deep into witchcraft and stuff like that. Thank you, MPW3833 for that sticker, $20 sticker. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you so much. Anyway, word had come to me this man had died and been buried in the cemetery. And here's a real freaky thing about it. He was supposed to be deep into witchcraft, and some people said he was not only a black warlock, but a black wizard and also a vampire. Well, I thought that's very interesting. But here's the most interesting part of the story. The day that he was buried in the cemetery, and it had been only maybe a few weeks or something, you know, before I got word about this, that this had happened. Maybe a month or so like that, a month or two before I actually went out to this grave, okay? And he said what happened on the day he was buried, right in the middle of the ceremony, this huge thunderstorm came up. And I remember a big thunderstorm, you know, at that time, because I wasn't, like I say, that far away from this place. And this thunderstorm had come up in the middle of his service, and they had to stop the funeral and leave. And lightning struck, supposedly, the tombstone that was placed there to be put in place. It wasn't in place right then, but, you know, they'll have it sitting there to be put in place after the burial, you know. And the lightning struck the grave, actually, and hit the tombstone and supposedly cracked it. Okay. And that sounds weird and freaky, okay? But you say, wait a minute, Dennis, what's so weird about this? Well, listen to the rest of this. They say that they came back to finish the interment, and that the grave had sunk a little bit, you know, kind of the rain, I guess, and all that. So they had to put gravel in there and all that and put it down. And supposedly, here's the weird part: his wife, who really was his estranged wife, they were, I think, in the process of getting divorced or whatever. She actually knew the pallbearers and all that, and she told them something to do because they all believed that he was a vampire. Supposedly, now I can't prove this, she had them put him in the casket in the grave upside down. Now, this is an old theory that if you put a vampire upside down in the grave, they can't come back. Okay, that is a belief. Okay, believe it or not, whether you believe it or not, that's what they think. And especially if you burn them upside down, even on their head, they can't come back, supposedly. Okay. But she supposedly had them put the casket upside down in the vault before they covered that up. And that's about the time that the storm came up. Okay. Uh, Thank you. Thank you there, Russell. Appreciate that, bud. And the whole thing is, she had them do that, and then she told him, also said, don't put dirt back on him, put gravel on him. The gravel supposedly is harder to come back through than the dirt, okay? All this was done because she believed that he was a true vampire, okay? And she was scared to death he was going to come back. Well, here's the real funky part of it all here, okay? Listen to this. It's a real funky part. Okay. They said, you need to go see this grave, okay? Because, he's supposed to be a vampire and a black warlock and all this other stuff. And they said, you need to go see. Here's the weird thing. Another storm came up after they fixed the grave. Another storm came up, like this is like 2 or 3 days later. Another storm came. It was on a weekend, I think. Another storm came up and lightning struck the tombstone again. And this time it really put a big crack in it, so they had to replace the tombstone. And when I went to see the grave, I could tell that the tombstone had been removed and another one had put in its place. And lightning strikes, right? But it doesn't strike twice in the same place. Well, evidently it does. Okay. Thank you, Governor Gone, for that $9.99 sticker. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, dear. You are a big supporter. Thank you so much. But that was the weird thing. It was almost as if even God resented this guy being put in the ground, being put in the good earth. Okay. I think, and here's what I told somebody about this whole case. I think they would never have had this problem if they had buried him outside of a churchyard. In a regular cemetery, this might have not. But see, churchyards are what? Consecrated ground. And you're not supposed to bury anybody evil, anybody that's been executed or anything like that in the graveyard, it's churchyard. Because it's consecrated ground, it's blessed ground. And that may be why these things happen. But his tombstone's there this day, I think. But the interesting thing is they buried him upside down. Maybe he didn't come back for sure, That's what I heard, and and a lot of this, I can take you a picture of the tombstone, but a lot of this is supposition. I can't prove it without doubt, but I did see a new tombstone. It looked like a new tombstone, like it had ever been damaged or anything. That's what they said. They put a new one in place. But like I said, it was 2 months later, and I could tell this had been recently been put there. Okay, that's all I can tell you. But the gravel was there. I saw that for my own self. The gravel was there. It's sort of like a river pedal type gravel, river pebbles, So anyway, that's the story of it. I call it the twice struck vampire. His grave was struck twice. And let me tell you what, when you get struck, I've been struck by lightning too, by the way. You get struck by lightning, that's real freaky kind of stuff too, okay? Absolutely. But that's the story of the twice struck vampire. Okay. Now I will tell you quick the voodoo vampire story. Now I got a call from a paranormal group who knew my reputation, and they said, Dr. Carl, we got a voodoo case. So we don't know that much about voodoo, and somebody told us you did, and we want to talk to you about it. And I said, sure, And they told me the story of their client, and the client was a woman and a man. They had no children. They were good, supposedly Christian people, and they had a dog grooming service. And this was in the town over next to me. And they had a dog grooming service, and they actually owned 2 houses. One house on the corner is where they groomed the dogs, and then they lived in the house down below it. Okay. And she told me that they had actually encountered a Mama Loa. Now, everybody here knows what a Mama Loa is, right? That is a voodoo priestess, okay? A Mama Loa. And, yeah, I'm sure. Yes, sir, Overbuilt. That was a real shocker in more ways than one. Absolutely. Anyway, the getting back to the story, the voodoo thing was kind of a weird spin to this, okay? So I went there and talked to this lady, and here's what her story was. She said this woman had moved into the neighborhood. She showed me the house. It was across the street on a corner, like there's another street there. And she said she moved into that house, and she was a Mama Loa, and the Mama Loa come over there to see her one day, and the Mama Loa had a black vial of black liquid, and she gave it to this dog grooming woman. She said, "Here, honey, you take this, and you'll have real good luck in your house, and you'll have good luck, and money will come in, and all this stuff." So the woman, she didn't want to be nice. She took the vial of black liquid, and she said, to tell you the truth, this girl, I threw it away. I threw it. I said, I wish I hadn't done that, because we could do something with it if you hadn't thrown it away. But anyway, I knew it was then probably some type of voodoo fetish thing. Okay, we'll get into that in a minute. I even looked around. I searched her yard and searched her premises for another voodoo fetish. They usually leave one with feathers and stuff like that around. But here's what the lady's story was. She said, since this woman showed up, everything was going along fine. She said, now I struggle to do 2 or 3 dogs a day. I used to do 10 dogs a day. I used to groom 10 dogs a day. Now I barely can do 1 or 2. And I have to go home and lay down. She said, I've been to doctors. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not anemic. I don't have a blood disorder. There's nothing wrong with me. But it's just, I just feel like my energy is leaving me. My energy is being sapped out of me, And when I heard this, bell went off, Red flag went up. Oh, this sounds like you have got a vampire spirit put on you. And she didn't even know what that was. I said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, we need to get this thing away from you. We need to unattach this attachment that this woman has put on you. And she has probably put it on your house, And I asked her this question. I said, when you go home and lay down, do you get to feeling better after a while? She said, yeah, I do. I get a little more energy and all that. I said, what it is that spirit has been put in this house where you're doing the dog room and stuff at. Okay. Yeah, Papa Legba too. Yeah, Papa Legba is sort of the male equivalent of that. But anyway, she said I never thought about that. I said I think what's been put on your house, which is good, because it'll be easier to get rid of. So here's what I do. I had another guy help me, and I told him, I said, we're going to bless this house. We're going to clear your house out, and then I'm going to do you two. Make sure everything seal the deal. And said, on top of that, I will go down and do your other house too, So she said, well, do that first, then come back up here. So I went down to her other house. Her husband took me down there. I did that house, cleaned it out, cleansed it, spiritually cleansed it, came back, and then got ready to do this house where the dog grooming was, okay? Well, they were both upstairs. I told both of them, stay up here. She even showed me a closet, by the way. And in the closet was a weird stain at the ceiling of the closet. And guess what it looked like? I should have took a picture of this. It was like 666 in there. I told him, I said, take some white paint and paint over that. Scrub it off and paint over it. Okay. But anyway, sand it, scrub it, sand it, and paint over it. Anyway, I told both of them, stay upstairs. We're going downstairs and start down in the basement, and then we'll come back upstairs, okay? So I go down the stairs in the basement, and here's what happened. On the way down in there, I took the Bible out, took the holy water out, and before I could say a word, folks, this is the weirdest thing I've ever had happen like that. This spirit that was down there went right by me, went rushing right by me. The guy next behind me felt it. He saw it. He said it was like a shadow. I didn't see the shadow, but I felt it go by me. That thing could not get out of that house fast enough before I even threw the holy water. And when it got upstairs, when he left us past stairs, it was a big boom, big bang. And I heard the man and the woman upstairs say, what was that? And they thought we'd done something down in the basement. So after I cleansed the basement, I went back upstairs and told them, I said, did you hear that noise? And she said, yeah. I said, I like to hear that noise. I'll tell you why I like to hear that noise, folks. That means they're left. They leave. Sometimes these spirits, very dark ones, will make a noise when they leave. Vampires will also do that. This was a vampire spirit, by the way, folks. Okay. it made this noise when it was leaving the house. So I went ahead and blessed them, blessed the house, blessed everything. Everything was good and fine after that. But I told her from now on, be careful what you take from strangers. And here's an antidote to this thing, okay? Here's an antidote to this thing. That woman had moved out before I got there. She'd been moved out a couple of weeks. They said they went into that house, found all kinds of symbols painted on the walls in this house. They had to redo that house over again. She had a pentagram on the floor. She had the whole works in that house. She was a dark Mama Loa, okay? Absolutely, a real bad one. And she just did that to get back at that woman. Probably didn't like her for some reason or whatever. She just wanted to be mean and give them some kind of vampire spirit on them. That's exactly what this was. But let me tell you one more thing. If you destroy a vampire, they will go out that way too. They will try to take you with them, but they will definitely be destructive on their way out. That's the way spirits do. They'll knock over a chair, they'll knock over a lamp, or they'll do something on the way out. I've had that happen many, many, many times, trust me. But I like to see it because it means they're gone, okay? Although it's kind of hard on your furniture, all right? But that's the story of the voodoo vampire. And I checked back with her a couple of weeks after that. She said, I don't know what you done, but we're good here. I'm doing 10 dogs a day now. Everything is fine. And I told her, well, ma'am, I didn't do anything, but that is good to hear. That's exactly what we want. And that's the end of the voodoo vampire. But I thought you might like that one. The next one up here is called Red Like Me. And it is kind of a very disturbing vampire story. And the reason I call it vampire because it has all the earmarks of a vampire attack, like, okay? I got one happy cat. It's clawing and purring me. Cats like stories too, okay? All right. Red Like Me. I got a call one day from a very distraught mother. And she said, I need to meet with you at the church. She told me what church was. Church is uptown. And she said, the reason I want to meet you, I want to show you something. And I need your advice. And I said, ma'am, I certainly will meet you there. Tell me when you want me to meet you there. And she told me where to meet her at the back parking lot of the church. Well, I was familiar with the church and familiar with the cemetery because, like I said, it's like a history book. It's got a lot of the Civil War soldiers interred there and all that. I've been in that cemetery several times. And it was not a huge, big, but it's a churchyard cemetery, okay? And here's the story. She said, my little boy is 5 years old. He goes to preschool here, okay? They got a little preschool class. She said, my husband and I are very particular about our little child. We don't let him watch TV. We don't tell him any scary stories. We don't let him hear anything like that, you know? And we monitor him very closely. And she said, the only thing I think about is some other child may have told him something like this. And she said, but here's what happened. She said, my son got to talking about this boy, and his name was Jonathan, okay? And said Jonathan would meet him every day. Well, you know, he would my little boy would wait on me to pick him up here, you know, at this church. And said that there was a fence around the churchyard where the graveyard was, right? And she said, I find him sitting over there, you know, it was on like a brick wall with a fence on it. So I find him sitting there waiting on me, you know. And he said, you got talking about this little friend, Jonathan. And she said, and he said that Jonathan wants to go home with me and be my friend. And so the mother said, well, I thought it was just his imaginary friend, you know, because I asked his teacher, was anybody talking to him? She said, no, he sat out there by himself. He always sits out there by himself waiting on you to pick him up. So I said, well, what does he say about Jonathan? She said, well, Jonathan wants to go home with him. And Jonathan says he wants him to stay here with him. I said, what do you mean? Stay here to church with him? She says, yes, Jonathan wants me to stay here with him and be red like him. And I said, I don't understand. What do you mean be red like him? He said, well, my little boy says Jonathan has got red all over him. And he stands by the cemetery fence on the other side of the cemetery fence, wanting my little boy to come in the cemetery and play with him and stay with him and be with him and live with him. I said, well, that's not good. That does not sound good to me. And I said, has your son got a very active imagination? She said, no, not for things like this. He's a very normal child. She says we've never let him see horror movies, a bad story, anything like that. We've monitored him very closely. He said he should not be talking about somebody being red all over like this. And of course, the red he was definitely talking about was blood. Okay. And listen what he said. Here's one other thing the little boy said. And he said, Mama, I know when Jonathan's going to be there because I can smell the red. Now, let me tell you something. One of the things that a vampire does right before it's attacked, and a lot of people say they can smell the scent of blood. And that's why a red flag went up on this for me. I said, oh, this does not sound good at all. Not only is he red all over, he's got blood on him, he smells the red. He didn't know what blood was. He could only call it red. Okay, the little boy. He called it red. And Jonathan wants you to be like him. He wants you to be red like him. He wants you to live there with him. Ooh, this sounds very much like some type of vampire spirit. So here's what I told the lady to do. I said, look, don't mention anything being bad about this to your son. Okay, just tell your son that Jonathan is a bad little boy. Jonathan is a mean little boy. You don't need to be Jonathan's friend. If Jonathan comes to the fence, don't pay attention to him. Just like he's not there, okay? And so she had a talk with the little boy about this and told him what I told him to say. Don't have anything to do with Jonathan at all, and don't even go over next to the fence. I told him to go find some other place to stand, wait on her. Don't let him go to the fence. Stand as far away from that graveyard as possible, on that side of the parking lot. Okay. I said, don't even let him go over there and ignore him, and do not definitely let him go home with you. And you definitely don't want to stay here with Jonathan and be red like him. So I got a call a couple of weeks after this incident, and she said, I had a talk with my son like you told me to, and he believed me, he agreed with me, and everything is fine now. He doesn't talk about Jonathan anymore. But we got to remember something, folks. Children are very vulnerable, and the demonic knows this without a doubt. And especially some of these vampire type spirits, they're just like regular demonic spirits. They're always looking for a door to come in through and into your life. We have to keep that door closed, and we carefully watch over and guard that door at all times. We don't want to be red like them. Definitely, we don't want to. We don't want to go that route. But I'm glad the little boy, got past this. I think it was some type of a demonic trap or something, but it definitely sounded like the work of a vampire spirit. Absolutely. Next story up, the returning revenant. You're going to find this one kind of funky. This is wild, too. I got a call from a lady, and she said, I want to meet you somewhere in a restaurant. I forget what restaurant it was. Might have been Chick-fil-A, somewhere like that. She said, I want to talk to you about something. I said, sure. She said, my friend recommended me to you. She saw you on TV, matter of fact. I've been on television several times, different shows. And she said, she saw you on TV, and she said, I should talk to you about this. I said, sure, we'll meet there. So we met there, and she told me the story. So the girl, by the way, was probably around maybe 24, 25 years old, somewhere in that neighborhood. Very pretty young girl. And she said, Dr. Carroll, my mother and I have never got along. My mother was a conniving, very malevolent, very controlling, just plain out evil woman. She didn't care what she did to me or anybody else. She was just downright a very malevolent person. And said my mother got cancer and was dying from cancer. And said that I kind of got a little bit closer to my mother before she died because, she felt sorry for her mother and all that. But they didn't get along. They still didn't get along. So her mother, up to the very end, was just mean and hateful, But she said her mother had one request. Said, if you care anything about me, you'll bury me in my, my satin dress, my white dress. Well, it was sort of like a wedding dress kind of a thing. But it was a very fancy white dress that her mother, I think, must have been her mother's favorite dress or something, but it was satin like, And so she said, "I'll do that, mother. I'll make sure you are." And so her mother died, and she had her mother buried in this dress. And so after the funeral and all that, she said the first couple of nights after the funeral and all that, says the only peace I've gotten. Said after that, every night, my mother would come to me in a dream wearing that same dress, and my mother would act very strange in the dream. There was a feeling of malevolence and evil about her in the dream, and my mother was always trying to hug me and put her snuggle up against my neck, like. And she said this was bothered me because my mother never showed any emotion to me when I was young. Her mother was a very malevolent person. She just didn't care if she didn't touch. She wasn't a touchy feely kind of person. But all of a sudden she's doing these kind of weird things in my dream. She said when I wake up in the morning, you know, I just felt like I'm drained. I don't feel like I didn't sleep at all that night. And we've all had nights like that when you wake up and you say, "Did I sleep in it that night?" She said, "This is every night since I buried my mother." I said, "Well, how long has that been?" She said, "About 2 weeks now." And she said, "Is it possible my mother's coming back?" She said, "One more thing," she told me about. I used to have this. I got it around here somewhere. She gave it to me. She said, "I found this on the floor of my room. I did not know where this come from, but it was a piece of white satin cloth, just like the cloth that was on my mother's dress." And she said, "There's no reason this would be in my room. I don't have anything like this. I don't own anything like this." It was just a little small piece of cloth strip, like it might have been torn accidentally off of something or something. And I said, "That's very interesting. Let me take this cloth with me because it's not a good idea to leave something like that there where it was found. So I took it home and did what needed to be done to it to take off any bad influence on it. And I put it in my files. Anyway, and one day I will bring you some more stuff out to see in my files here. But anyway, I said, this is already beginning to bother me now. This does not sound good. I said, it sounds to me like your mother's coming back as a vampire type revenant. Now, of course, the word revenant means returning dead, okay? Or returning, actually, the word revenant. And I said, this not sound good. And I said, where's your mother buried? She told me where her mother was buried. And her mother was buried in an above ground vault, mausoleum, with some other, where other people are, buried. And I said, well, here's what I will do for you. I said, for the next 7 nights, and you're supposed to only do it for 7 nights, okay? I said, I will stand vigil over your mother's grave, over her tomb, and make sure she's not coming back. I said, now, if she is, we will take steps to do something about that, okay? If I actually see her, I'm gonna have to do some things, okay, to put her down. Because I said, if this keeps going on, you're gonna end up out there with her. You know what I'm saying? If this keeps going on, and I mean, she looked like, she didn't feel good. She looked like somebody had been gone without sleep for a while. She looked bad, okay? She was a young, pretty girl, but she looked bad on account of this. I mean, she had dark circles on her eyes and all this stuff. So I said, if this is the case, she says, you do what you got to do, Dr. Girl. You do what you got to do, okay? But you got to help me. And I said, okay, I will do it. For 7 long nights, folks, I sat out there and staked out, and that's not a pun, okay? Maybe it is a pun. I staked out that cemetery, watching for this woman to come back. And, which wasn't easy because I had to avoid the night watchman out there, okay? But I watched, and about like the 4th night, I saw something white out among the tombstones. And I walked out there, and I looked, and I walked up on a very large white dog that was standing out there. It was like a white German Shepherd, okay? I said, well, where do you come from? The dog just kind of stared at me. It was kind of weird looking. It didn't, come. Usually dogs and cats come to me. I'm a real animal person. They'll come up to me and want me to pet them, and all that. This dog didn't do that. It was kind of standoffish and just sit among the tombstones watching me, When it kind of gave me a weird feeling too. Did this vampire come back looking like a dog or what kind of a thing, I thought about that later. But so finally the dog walked off. So, but 7 long nights, nothing happened. So the 7th night I went out there, and with blessed chalk that I have, I drew a cross on that tomb. And I spoke to that woman. I said, if your spirit hears me, if your spirit is still here, I lay you to rest now. Do not come back and bother your daughter anymore. Go on to where you need to go on. You do not belong on this world and in this world anymore. You don't belong here. Go where you need to go. But do not bother the living. And I drew a cross with the blessed chalk on the side of the tombstone. And then I applied holy water to it and said a prayer. And about a week, I think I was busy at work or something, but about a week later, I got back with the girl and met her again at that restaurant. And of course, I promised her I would never reveal her identity to anyone. But she said, "Yeah, you can tell my story." But she was like a different girl. I hardly knew her for a minute. The black circles were gone. She looked very, healthy looking. She looked good. And she said, Dr. Carroll, I don't know what you did, but you did something, because that night, after, we met, and my mother has not come back. And she said, I feel I've finally gotten, a whole week's worth of good sleep, no problems at all. She said, I want to thank you so very, very much. And I said, well, you do what you can, but it was the power of God, not me, that did what had to be done. But I said, I'm glad that now your mother and you both will have peace. And that is the story of the returning revenant. But that was a very interesting case. Absolutely. So it's always a good idea to have some blessed chalk, Andy, just in case. These are tools of the trade, folks. Got one more story now for you. One more thing in this 6-pack of vampires to tell you about. And this is a freaky one. I have never told anyone about this, okay? But unfortunately, this was kind of a long-distance case. I wasn't there where it happened. I wish I could have been. But here's the story. I got a phone call. This has been years ago. I got a phone call from a guy. I think he was in, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in Oklahoma. And he said, Dr. Carroll, I've got a problem on my farm. Now, he had a small farm, and he had about 20 head of cattle. Some of these were mostly, I think, were milk cows. And he had, of course, chickens. He had a regular little farm, And he told me about it, how many acres it was. I don't think it was a real huge farm. But he said it'd been in the family a long time, He said, I started having a problem with my cows a few weeks ago. And I said, well, what kind of problem? Something bothering them? He said, well, yeah, but it's something that I need to tell you about that was bothering them. And he said, it's the weirdest. He said, it's really been on my mind ever since this happened. It's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. And he said, but, he said, I saw your website or something. He saw my website and said, well, this is the guy I need to talk to about him. I said, and he wanted to talk to me. And I said, okay, definitely. I'm here for you. Tell me what you need to know. And he said, well, here's the story. He said, I got to worrying about some of my cows. Some of my cows were coming up as being kind of anemic. And he said they were kind of weak need and all this, so they wasn't doing good. And they were just regular cows, not bulls, but they were cows. And he said that he noticed something on one of them's neck. They were like 2 holes in the neck. And it looked like, they had maybe got up against a barbed wire or something. But he said he found this on 6 different cows. And every one of these cows were exhibiting the same signs of anemic. So he called his vet about this. And the vet come out and looked at him. And the vet said, I don't know what this is. He said, I've never seen anything like it. He said, this is definitely some kind of bite mark on your cows, and your cows have lost a lot of blood. That's why they're anemic. They're missing some blood. He said, has any of them been injured? And he said, I couldn't find any injuries on them. And the farmer said, no, nothing. He said, have you changed their feed? He said, no, same feed's the same and everything. Because the vet come on a regular basis checking his animals out for him, And he said, well, this is a mystery to me. I don't know what's going on here. So this is the way the story went. I said, well, that sounds bad. They've lost blood and you don't know how they did it. And he said, no. He said, there's no signs of any blood around or anything like that. No coyotes or nothing around here. No wolves, anything like that. There's nothing like that. He said there were 2 puncture marks on the throats up under the neck of the cows. Not on the side, but kind of up under the neck. And I said, well, this is very weird. So he said, well, here's the rest of the story. What happened? He said, a few nights ago, said, I heard the cows. Said, I was out on the porch smoking a cigarette. Said, I heard the cows moving a little bit. He said, I got my flashlight. He thought it might have been some kind of, other animal or something messing with his cows. So he got my flashlight and I got my double barrel shotgun, And he went out there and they were sort of like, cows have a place to come in at night, settle down and all that. And he said he noticed there was a group of cows, that same kind of looking group that were anemic, over in one corner, and they were acting scared like. And he said, I flashed the flashlight on them, and he said there was something black hanging up under the neck of one of these cows over next to the fence. And I said, what was it? And he said, the first thing I thought about, vampire bat, He said, I don't know what it was. He said it was big. And he said, when I put my flashlight on it, he said, I shot one, he had a double barrel shotgun. Said, I let one shot go and scared the thing off. And said the thing flew off of the cow and started across the thing. He said, I shot at it a second time. Said, I shot at it the second time. He said, I think I hit it. But I couldn't, next morning, I couldn't find any blood. I never found the animal. He said, Mr. Carroll, it looked like a big bat. But he said, I don't understand. There are no bats like that around here. I said, no, definitely there are no bats that size in Oklahoma. I said, what you sounds like to me, what you're describing is, like a fruit bat. But I said, they're in like, Indonesia and places like that in South America. They wouldn't be up here. I said, the only bats we got in this country are usually around, the biggest ones maybe 6 inches or something like that. He said, this bat was the size of an eagle. At least. Because he said, I shot at it. I saw it. So I had my flashlight on all the time. And he said it was huge. Now let me backtrack a minute. Remember what I talked about that bat I saw at that graveyard with the girl? I had one more incident before that graveyard, years and years ago when I was a kid. I was about maybe 16 years old. And I was with some boys one night. We were coming home from a theater uptown. And we were walking across a viaduct bridge. And right next to the light, there were street lights on. I saw, folks, the biggest bat I've ever seen, except for that one I saw in that graveyard with a girl. Biggest bat I've ever seen. It was a huge bat, okay? Big as a hawk. I'm not going to say big as an eagle, because eagles are bigger than hawks. But it was hawk size, definitely. And I remember that when I also saw that one in the graveyard with that girl. And now this guy's telling me he shot at one like that. I said, well, that is really weird because that bat should not exist here, especially not in Oklahoma. But he said, I don't know what I have no idea either. But he said the cows are doing better. That was like a week before he called me. He said the cows are doing better. And he said, I think they're getting their health back. I said, well, you call me back and let me know if that thing ever comes back or if you find it dead. I want to know. He said, I certainly will. I never heard from him again. But that was a strange story of the giant bat. And that bat should not be here, folks, especially not a vampire bat. Vampire bats do not come that big. Now, vampire bats will hang on the neck of a cow and take out a little blood every night. And the only way they could make a cow anemic would be for a whole flock of them to get on a cow. But this was one bat. The size of an eagle? That is wild. Was that maybe some vampire stopping in for a midnight snack? You never know. But that's my story. And that's your 6-pack of vampires for tonight. So, what do you think about that? Well, Heidi, good to have you here, dear. Thank you for stopping in. But that are some of the vampires that I have known. No, it didn't fly off with the cow. It flew off away from the cow. No, it didn't fly off with the cow, but it was as big, he said, as an eagle. He shot at him. And I figured he knows what eagles are because there are eagles in Oklahoma, you know. So I don't know, but that's really, really weird. Are there giant bats out there? Vampire bats? I tell you what, I can take a little 6-inch vampire bat, but let's talk about ones the size of an eagle. You're getting into some really weird territory. But that's my 6-pack of vampires for you tonight. Vampires that I have known. Now, there are ways to protect yourself against vampires. Vampires do not definitely like mirrors because all demons are that way. Demons do not like mirrors, okay? And it's a good idea to remember that, okay? But it's not a good idea to sleep around mirrors, so they say. Mirrors have a tendency to suck your soul up if you're not careful, so they say. Or open portals to suck your soul up. But vampires do not like mirrors, especially because they supposedly cannot see themselves in mirrors. Now, I think that was back when mirrors had a real silver backing on them. Now they may be able to see themselves. I don't know. But anyway, you got to remember, you got to separate the Hollywood vampire from the real life vampire. Although there is a similarity, there are different ways to go about to lay a vampire, to put a vampire down. They're somewhat different. A stake will not do it most of the time. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. A wooden stake is a temporary thing to hold the vampire down while you finish the job. Okay? The stake, which has to be a hawthorn, of hawthorn wood, or mountain ash, is used for that purpose to hold the vampire down. But you got to decapitate him, cut out his heart, and then burn every bit of him. And that finally will put the vampire down. If you don't, if you just drive a stake in him, he may come back. You may have, and by the way, iron stakes work better than wooden stakes. By the way, but also when you get to them, if you put something in their mouth and bury them upside down, or put the corpse back in the ground upside down and then burn it, whatever the situation is, there's certain ways to handle the vampire. Don't leave the job half done. You got to cut the head off, okay? Now, that's what I said before about St. Dennis. Now, you all know the story of St. Dennis, right? St. Dennis is the patron saint of vampire hunters, by the way. And St. Dennis was martyred by having his head cut off. But he was such a good man that he picked his head up, kept preaching as he walked down the road, and finally lay down in the cemetery and died. That is supposed to be the patron saint of vampire hunters because you don't finish the job on a vampire until you cut his head off and supposedly cut his heart out, burn it and the body, the head and everything, burn it to ashes. Then usually that will take care of your vampire problem. But there are other ways to protect yourself too. Garlic protects you, of course. You know about that. Wolfsbane protects you. Silver crosses, silver medallions with angel names on it. Whatever the situation, those things will protect you as well from vampires and any kind of evil spirits. By the way, you got to remember something: vampires are evil spirits, and evil spirits can be vampires. Okay. And you can also, a human being can become a vampire through a satanic cult by reaching a certain level of supernatural power. They can become vampires. They can become werewolves. They can become different things. Okay. These are the things that people can turn into become. That's another kind of vampire that you have to worry about as well. Also, if you put rice down or poppy seeds on the floor next to your bed, that will keep vampires away because vampires supposedly have a compulsion to count things. And they will stop and count the seeds of poppy seeds or the rice grains until sunup, and then they got to leave. That's a tricky way to keep a vampire back. There are many different ways in which to deal with vampires. Yeah, like the song. I don't know. I don't know about that song, Tammy, but I'll have to listen for that sometime. But yeah, especially when she found a piece of that cloth there, and she said, "I don't know where this come from." You know, that kind of put the hackles up on my neck. No, that don't sound good at all. So when you go out tonight, or you go out to the parking lot at Walmart tonight, be ready to duck for giant bats. Okay, absolutely. We don't want giant vampire bats around. When I was a kid, by the way, I had a pet bat. By the way, I had a pet bat. Yes, I did. This bat was knocked down by some boys with rocks, and I picked it up and took it home, and nursed it back to health. And kept it down. I tried to put it in the bird cage, but it would slip through the bird cage. So I put it finally in the window and closed the window, and it had a screen wire, screen window wire. And I fed the bat bugs for a while until he finally got to feeling better. And then I turned him loose. So hopefully I got a bat friend out there somewhere. Billy Idol, huh? I have to remember that. But anyway, so if you ever have a vampire problem, you know who to call, right? Absolutely. I have done a little bit of vampire hunting in my time. But I appreciate you all tonight for being here, for your support. And you got any questions, observations before we wind it up here? Now is your time to speak up. Anything you want to know, ask about, whatever. Good night, Jason. But he probably misses me. Han says he probably misses me. I hope he's a good friend out there somewhere. I like bats, though. Bats are very. I'm gonna tell you something about bats. We would be in a lot of trouble without bats. Bats eat their weight in bugs every night. Okay, very important. How do you become a werewolf? Matthew wants to know. You do not want to know how to do that, Matthew. Believe me, you don't want to go there. It is very dark, insidious, and terrible way to do things. You have to murder people. You have to do torture and all kinds of things, fun things like that to become a werewolf. It's nothing fun. It is very demonic. Very, very demonic. You don't get much more demonic than that. Okay. I do know what it takes to become a werewolf. I do know what it, would do, but I'm not willing to walk that far into the darkness to do that. It's not because you go that far in the darkness, my friend, you will not come back. Yep, werewolves are definitely demonic. They are demonic, supernatural creatures. I'm not see a vampire, but I'll play Bob Joyce's Elvis Christian music in Okay, I hear you. They probably wouldn't like that kind of music, definitely. But anyway, I appreciate you all being here tonight. This has been a great show. Vampires, I have known. Absolutely. And who knows, I may have some more to tell you about one day very soon. But maybe next time I'll do werewolves. Werewolves are very interesting stuff too. I have a couple of werewolf stories as well. But anyway, I appreciate you all being here tonight and appreciate your support of the show. I want to thank you all so very much for being here like I did half the stuff in the Marine Corps. Oh, yeah, you definitely don't want to go there, my friend. You definitely do not want to go there. But want to thank you all definitely for being here. Thank you, Wizard Moon. Thank all of you, MP13, and all the rest of you. Thank you so much, Tammy, and all of you for being here tonight. Appreciate the support. And don't forget now, we're going to have an interesting weekend coming up here. Sunday, I will have two shows Sunday. Sunday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be doing the show with Chantel Mayberg. That's going to be at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It was supposed to be Thursday, but we had to reschedule. And it will be Sunday and Sunday night, I think about 9 o'clock, will be with a show with the Duchess, Danielle Diva Borzon. I will be doing a show with her. I'm going to get her on here one night as a guest and let you all hear what she's got to tell you about the Gypsy Death Curse cult that's going on. She knows a lot about the Gypsy Death. This is freaky stuff, folks. You need to hear this. She goes. She knows a lot about the Gypsy Death cult. Okay, so she lived with it. So definitely check her channel out. And Aquarius Rising, Africa. Check that out. And both of those will be Sunday if nothing happens. Okay, and then Monday with my good brother Gerald Fountain. We will be doing the road less traveled at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be there or be square, my friends. Okay, I appreciate you all for being here tonight very much, and make sure to always keep an eye on your paranormal point of view. Okay, absolutely. And don't forget now, and I'll tell you this going, and I'm not joking about this. Okay, just like all these other people, I've been there for them. I'm there for you. If you need me for anything, if you need to ask me a question, want to tell me a story that you think might go in my book, whatever the situation, you can contact me at DennisWCarroll.com. Okay? It's not that hard. DennisWCarroll.com. Okay? Or DennisWCarroll at gmail.com. Okay? Either way you want to go, you can reach me there. And don't forget, I do have a Patreon. You can join that if you would like to become a member. Or we also have membership wide open right now for the Shadow Hunters Club on YouTube. You can join that and get on some very special, extra special videos that are going to be coming your way. And you might want to hear about the handshake I talked about the other night. Get on board, okay? We're going to hunt some shadows, folks. The time has come for us to face the darkness and go hunting the shadows. Okay, absolutely. So you may want to join both of those, the Patreon or the YouTube, whichever one suits you. That's the Patreon right there, and you can join that, or you can also join Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. Please tell your friends about it, and all that. We will appreciate it very much. We're slowly climbing to 2,000 subscribers, so please help us get to the top there. Okay. All right, and we appreciate all of you so very much. Believe me, like I say, this is your podcast too. You're involved in this too. I'm in your corner, you in my corner. We got each other's back here. Okay. So if you get attacked by vampires, call me, all right? Or if vampires and stuff, witches and all that start harassing you, call me. Oh yeah, somebody asked me why do I wear the red? I got a little red lapel button. Do you you know what the red does? Red supposedly protects you, my friend, from dark evil witches and spirits. So I always wear red just in case, okay? And of course I've got the 7 angel medallion, the Star of the 7 Angels, okay? And if anybody wants one of those, let me know, contact me. I may have some left. They're like $15 a piece, okay? That includes shipping, all right? If you decide you would want one. So anyway, they're in gold. I've got them in gold now, okay? I don't think it's real gold, but it's a quick facsimile of it, okay? Thank you, girl. Gone got your six too, dear. And I want to thank all of you, absolutely, Jason and Joanne and all the rest of you. I want to thank you so much. If I didn't call your name, you're still in my thoughts. And don't forget, we still looking out for each other. This is our podcast. This is our voice. They can't stop the signal. Okay. All right. Until we get together again, then be careful out there, and be aware. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your eyes on your six. Crime is rising, folks. It definitely is. So be very aware when you go to walk your dog, whatever the situation. Okay? Be aware of your environment and your surroundings at all times and what's going on. Okay? Be prepared. Okay? That's the main thing. Be prepared and get yourself prayed up too. Okay? Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you all so very, very much. And we're all the same members of the wolf tribe here. Okay? We are shadow hunters, absolutely. And I want to thank you all for being members of my tribe. Absolutely appreciate it. And by the way, a flock of bats is called a colony of bats. By the way, I meant to say that earlier. So don't get batty about it, okay? All right. We don't want any bats in the belfry, right? All right. I appreciate you all for being here tonight. Hope you have a splendid and wonderful weekend. And I'll be looking for you Sunday if nothing happens, okay? Take care of yourselves. And remember, non timbo mala. Fear no evil. We are shadow hunters, my friends. Let the night fear us. Until we get together again, Godspeed and ciao.
I walk in a world